Hello, everyone, and welcome to Johnny Dell's Football Academy. The last regular season game of the NFL's 100th season lived up to the expectations, with the game coming down to the final seconds and decided by a mere inches. This was, without a doubt, the biggest game of the season for both teams, considering what was at stake. There were highs and lows for both teams, but I'm thankful the Niners were able to pick up a win in Seattle and get the first round bye, along with home field advantage throughout the playoffs. I'm going to break this review into two parts, one covering the offense and one covering the defense. And with so much to cover, I'm keeping the intro a little bit shorter, so we'll just dive right in and cover things as we go. The first drive of the game set the tone for how the offense would play throughout. Here we pick up a big third down on 3rd and 7. Seattle tries to hide their coverage here by having both corners in a press alignment squared up to the receivers. This usually indicates man coverage. However, Seattle is going to be in a different form of cover 3 on this play. They'll be in cover 3 Mabel. To put it basically, it's cover 3 with the 1 or 2 receiver side being in man coverage, hence the M word, Mabel. We're going to look to work an underneath route here with Deebo Samuel and Kendrick Bourne. This is the same play we ran against the Ravens for a first down early in that game. What will happen is Bourne will run a corner route for possible interference on Samuel's man defender. Then Deebo will run a short in underneath Bourne's route, trying to get his man to run over the top of the interference to break back outside. Against man, this would be a low-high progression read for Jimmy, as both routes work well against man coverage. We then have Kittle on a post-out route, so bear in mind that the progression for this play is Deebo 1, Bourne 2, and Kittle 3. At the snap, you'll see Shaquille Griffin turn into a bail technique. That's an indicator of zone coverage, and as the play develops, you'll see the zone defenders hand off the routes and effectively cover both. From there, we'll see that Bobby Wagner has looked to match Kittle over the middle. When Kittle sits down, Jimmy is going to see that he's got outside leverage and throw him open. From the end zone, you'll see Jimmy work the progression. He first looks to the 1 and 2, then gets to Kittle as the third in the progression, and makes a really good throw with pressure in his face and without being able to step into a throw or have a normal arm slot. While it seems like a simple 11-yard gain, there's so many good things here from Jimmy G. Here, you'll see Seattle in the press alignment again squared up to the receivers. This time, they will be in man coverage and will look to double George Kittle. We're running a drive concept with Kendrick Bourne and George Kittle, and looks to have a high-low read against zone coverage. So the last third down, Seattle gave this same look but ran zone in cover 3 Mabel when we had man-beating routes dialed up, and Jimmy had to work to the third read in the progression. Here, we're looking for zone, and so we have a zone beater dialed up with Sanders being the third read in the progression on a slant route. As the play develops, you'll see Seattle in man coverage, and George Kittle is doubled. They've taken away the drive concept, and so Jimmy works quickly to the slant where Sanders ran a great route and we get just enough for a first down. So on both third downs, Jimmy G was able to work to his third read in the progression, after the play that was called in was designed to go against a different defense than what they got, with Seattle giving identical looks on both plays. This is why I'm such a believer in Jimmy G. Teams are doing a lot of things to try and confuse him, and he processes things so quickly and works the plays. I know I keep saying it over and over again, but he's so much fun to watch. So just a little bit later, we hit Deebo for a huge gain and really get the offense going. If you saw my preview video of this game, this was a play I highlighted as one I'd like to see us run. It's an RPO off an outside zone. This is a nearly identical play to the one that we ran for 30 yards to Deebo in the first meeting. It's a run-pass option and will outflank the defense with both Kittle and Juszczyk to the field side. By doing this, we've isolated Bobby Wagner in the middle. Jimmy reads Wagner and sees that he has to attack his gap aggressively and just pulls the ball and gets it in stride to Samuel, who does his thing with the ball in his hands. Next, we're just going to run our slide concept. We've all seen this a ton of times as it's one of our staple plays, but you just fake the outside zone to one side and flood the field the opposite way. At first, Seattle covers it pretty well, and Jimmy doesn't force the ball. He's out on the edge, and so I like how he's patient with this. With the flat defender playing underneath, he looks to Richie James coming across the field. Again, he doesn't force the ball here. He really just looks off the defender and creates space for Kittle, where he drops it off for a nice 15-yard gain. This is an example of how this outside zone-based scheme makes it so hard on defenses to know where the ball is going. So here we're going to fake the counter run and then have Debo on a jet sweep. Because we've been so good with our counters all year, Seattle's linebackers completely sell out on the counter run, which gives the jet sweep a ton of room. What makes this play work are three guys. First, Emmanuel Sanders is going to do a great job of blocking. Second, Juszczyk's athleticism to fake one side and peel back and get around out ahead as a lead blocker. And three, Ben Garland does a great job getting downfield and up onto the free safety. This is why I have such a hard time with that unnecessary roughness call later in the game. But this run is just poetry in motion. So then I'll show another slide concept, and this time it's to Debo Samuel that gets us going on our next scoring drive. There's no doubt that not having George Kittle in the first game was a huge difference maker, but let's look at exactly why. On this slide concept, Griffin is going to be in position on Debo coming across, but he's so worried about Kittle that he completely bails out to cover George coming across the field. So you have Samuel wide open. That's the kind of attention Kittle is getting. So just to recap for a second, Seattle has tried to double Kittle in man coverage and we got it to other guys. They tried to sit on him in zone and we were able to still get it to him. On this play, we're going to come out in 22 personnel with 2 backs and 2 tight ends and 1 wide receiver. Seattle then, because no other defenses worked, now goes with man coverage. But this time they put their best coverage guy, Shaquille Griffin, on Kittle. We're just going to run a flood concept, which is a vertical stretch of the zone defense. We were looking to get cover 3 here as Seattle runs that a lot. And the flood is a streak or go route, a deep out route, and a flat route. Against cover 3, it looks to vertically stretch the defense by having 3 routes in an area of the field with only 2 defenders. Seattle again has a good defensive call dialed up against what we're going to run. Against most teams, having man coverage on a flood with your number 1 corner on the other team's tight end running the only hard-breaking route should be a win. But this is no ordinary tight end. From the end zone, we'll see the move Kittle puts on Griffin to get open. Jimmy does a good job seeing the coverage pre-snap, and when he turns, he just reads Kittle to get a nice gain. So then we're going to again get Kittle for a nice gain, and this is one of the nicest plays I've seen Jimmy make. We're going to run a double post concept on this play, which is really meant to beat cover 3 as it looks to put the deep middle safety in conflict. Seattle, like us, likes to mix up their coverage looks a lot, so because they showed 2 deep safeties doesn't mean they're going to run a 2 deep coverage. So sometimes you just have to run the play that's called. But Seattle is going to run a 2 deep defense, this time a cover 2 zone. This should be a win for Seattle. In cover 2, they will have 3 defenders in the middle of the field against 2 routes. From the end zone, we'll see how Jimmy works his play. At the snap, he's reading the safeties and he sees that they stay high and wide, indicating cover 2. I'm going to talk about what he does first and then play it in real time a couple times because in slow motion, it's almost impossible to pick up on what he does. So hang in with me for a second. He'll first snap his head to the left. That's going to look off the hook defender to that side and cause him to widen. He'll then pull his hand off the ball. Remember how Sherman talked about that was a tell on him when he was going to throw? He pulls his hand off the ball and gives a little bit of shoulders and hip, acting as if he's going to throw to the right. But there's no receiver there. That little move gets Wagner to move off to that side and is going to open up a hole for Kittle over the middle. This play only happens because of Jimmy G and his ability to move defenders with his head and movement. That's elite level stuff there. That's the kind of mastery class stuff we talk about when it comes to quarterbacking. When a defense has the right call versus your concept, but the quarterback is able to manipulate a defense to get guys open, you have no idea how exciting that is. I haven't seen a quarterback able to do that in San Francisco since I've been watching film. Then in the second half, after Seattle scored, we're going to come out and drive down the field for a touchdown, started by this play. This is what's called a scissors concept. It's called that because the routes look like a pair of scissors, but the outside receiver will break in and then run a post route, and then you have a wheel route off that. And it looks to put the deep third defender in a horizontal stretch. Seattle is in cover 3 here, and we first give play action that holds the flat defender, Kendricks. From there, Griffin has matched the post route, and so Jimmy G first looks off the free safety and then hits Juszczyk for a huge gain. So between the use check play and this play, it's all but 2 yards of the entire offense of this drive. Like I showed earlier, it's just an RPO where we fake the outside zone and hit Samuel on a slant route for a huge gain, with Wagner being so aggressive versus the run. I show these because Wagner ran his mouth after the last game about how they knew what we were going to do based off our signals and audibles. I'm calling BS. If he knew what we were going to run, why are we burning him for huge chunk gains on plays like this in both games? So on a big third down on this drive, we're going to hit Deebo Samuel for a big gain, and it's another great play by Jimmy G. So with seeing a lot of zone in the second half, we're again going to expect zone coverage. So we're going to have a cover 3 and cover 2 beating concepts on this play. First is the cover 3 beater, which will be another drive concept with Kittle running the deep in route. The other is going to be a smash concept, which is a cover 2 beater with Samuel and Mostert, as would look to put the cloud defender in a vertical stretch. We then have Sanders running a stutter and go to a comeback route. With a single safety, Jimmy expects to see cover 3 zone. At the snap, though, we'll see Seattle is going to be in cover 1 man, and will double George Kittle once again. Jimmy looks to work the drive, and just like earlier, is going to see Seattle has it well defended. From there, he works the smash concept, as he's going to have a corner route, and he sees Samuel did a great job of running his route to beat Griffin. Again, on another big third down, Jimmy was able to get to his third read in the progression for a huge gain. How there can be any doubts about this guy, I don't know. He's proving over and over again he's one of the top quarterbacks in this league, and why I love watching him so much. I love to see this kind of mental game from a quarterback where he's able to work the plays, get the ball to his playmakers, and frustrate defenses. So finally, we'll talk about the last touchdown of the game for our offense. So I'm going to call back to 2 of my previous videos. First, the preview video I did last week. I talked about how I wanted to see Shanahan run some more power gap scheme in the run game, as Seattle could be susceptible to that, and that's what we'll do here. Second, the first game against Seattle, I reviewed what could have been. We had a run in overtime that was one missed block away from going to the house. We're going to run that play here, and it will go to the house. It's an end trap play. A trap play is different from a power play in that power plays have you pulling a lineman and leading up into the hole with him. Trap plays, you pull a lineman and have him block someone else's guy who will lead up into the hole. So you're going to get down blocks from all the linemen, and Joe Staley is going to leave the end man on the line of scrimmage and get up on the second level. We then will pull Brunskill and have him kick out the M-loss. This is also why having George Kittle back is huge. If you saw the video I talked about from earlier in the year, the play was blown up by the defensive end who crashed down. The defensive end looks to crash down, but Kittle cuts him off. Because of that, Wagner is now exchanged out of the gap, and you have a parting of the sea for Mostert. From there, he reads the free safety who fills outside, and he's able to cut it back up and take it for the game-winning score. Now, I don't know if all that gets you excited, but it does me. We scored on all but 3 of our drives in the game, which is incredible. It was a game that when I watched, it felt like we put up 500 yards of offense and scored 40 points because of how dominant the offense was and seemed to do whatever they wanted against Seattle. The only reason they didn't score more points was that both teams ended up making long drives in the game, and so each team had fewer opportunities. What a great win this was, and by far the funnest film I've ever watched. The New Orleans game was fun, and other games where we've put up huge point totals have been great, but there's no greater feeling than watching our offense have their way with Seattle's defense with all the things that Seattle defenders have said about our team in the past. For me, personally, this is probably the most I've enjoyed a 49ers win since the NFC Championship game in 2012 that took us to the Super Bowl. And I would put this game as the second or third funnest game in the past 20 years for me. After all, I am so excited to see this team actually play in the playoffs and get the rest they need. So thanks for tuning in, and if you'd like to support the channel in any way, I'll have a way you can do that in the description. And as always, until next time, go Niners!